welcome to another episode of Mission Possible, the podcast that explores and celebrates the stories of immigrant entrepreneurs in Australia. Today, I'm with a great guest and a person that I admire because he created Catalysr, an award-winning startup accelerator running programs for high-performing migrants and refugee entrepreneurs or Migrapreneurs. His name is Usman Iftikhar. He is originally from Pakistan and he has been in Australia since 2013. I recently joined one of these programs and I have to say the content is amazing, Usman, so thank you so much. Thank you for your initiative, your idea, your inspiration. And I just want to know a little bit more about yourself. What brought you to Australia? What inspired you to start Catalysr?
Thank you so much for having me. It's fantastic to be a part of this podcast, and also want to say congratulations to you on running this podcast. I think it's so important and so needed in Australia to really highlight and spotlight the amazing stories of entrepreneurs from migrant background, refugee background. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for having me on
Thank you,
as well.
sir.
So yeah, as you mentioned, I'm from Pakistan. I came here as a student originally. So I studied engineering in Pakistan. I did mechanical engineering. And then I came here to do a master's in engineering management back in 2013 at University of Wollongong. And after studying here for a couple of years, one of the things that I wanted to obviously, like many other people, find a job in my industry. And I was quite kind of struggling to find meaningful employment. So, I was one of those people that was working in a 7-Eleven or a BP, stocking shelves, serving people in servers, and there's nothing wrong in doing that, but it was just something that I felt that I was kind of overqualified for and wasn't really feeling very happy about. So I decided, look, I'm just going to apply for lots of jobs, hopefully get somewhere. But after trying, after applying for hundreds of jobs and not really getting something, decided, look, I'm just going to start my own business. If people are not going to give me a job and let me use my own experience, I should start my own business because that will be a pathway for me to help me really create my own job. So I got into startup world, went through a couple of hackathons, tried a couple of ideas that didn't work, but that gave me confidence and I guess motivation that this is something that I can do and kind of work on. As an engineer, I was also looking at clean tech and particularly interested in renewable energy. So I saw there was another program being set up at the time called Energy Lab, which was an accelerator that was helping people to start clean tech companies. So I helped them in the early days to get started. Again, ran hackathons for them, did some kind of innovation programs for them as well. And at the same time, was thinking of, this advice that I got from one of my mentors was to solve a problem using entrepreneurship. So for me, I was really socially minded. I wanted to solve a social problem. And I went through a program by an organization called School for Social Entrepreneurs. So just like how you're going through Catalysr now, this was a program back in 2015. Which was set up to support young people who wanted to solve social problems and create a social enterprise in Australia. And through that process, I actually realized that the problem that I wanted to solve was the issue or the problem that I was facing myself, the problem of unemployment, but specifically underemployment that people from migrant and refugee backgrounds was facing, and to be able to help them, like myself, learn about entrepreneurship, learn about startups, utilize their skills, right? Rather than driving an Uber, working in 7-Eleven for years and years. And so that was kind of my motivation to get started. Initially, when I started Catalysr, I started with a co-founder that I found as a part of that program. We had no background in kind of running businesses. He was an accountant who was kind of born in Australia, but wasn't very happy kind of doing traditional accounting. And I was obviously, trying to look for a job for myself. And so we got together. And because we were going through a program already, we got a few learnings from that program, and then set up our own pilot program back in 2016. We took 10 people through that first program from different cultural, groups and backgrounds. And as a result of that pilot, 3 of those people started their own business. And we had a really bad program. So we didn't have a lot of stuff figured out at the time. This was super early days. When you are when you're running a pilot, you're kind of trying new things. So we put together some content, put together some mentoring, this and that, but we weren't really sure what we were doing and whether that's going to be useful. But even then, we had 3 people that successfully started a business. And to me and to my co-founder, that was a great validation that even though our product isn't great, our program isn't really great, people are still starting their business. and that spoke to this internal resilience and the drive and entrepreneurialism that exists amongst migrant and refugee entrepreneurs or people that are coming from migrant and refugee backgrounds in Australia. So we decided, look, this is something you wanted to focus on long term. So I've spent a lot of time learning about entrepreneurship, spent a lot of time shadowing different people, learning about different programs, going to different parts of the world, and really learning about this and evolving the programs that we've had through Catalysr. So now, 8 years on in our journey, 2024, we have supported over 1,000 people, and you're part of the cohort that is, being part of that alumni base, who have, come from different cultures, different backgrounds. I guess from last count, we had people from 87 different countries that have been part of our Catalyst programs. We obviously, become a bit more sophisticated around what kind of programs you are at different stages. So going from, really early stage into the different fellowships to accelerator programs as well. What we're really proud of is, nearly half, 46, 47% of the people that have gone through our programs have been women as well, which has been really fantastic. And so, yes, it's been a fantastic journey so far, coming to Australia, facing this problem myself, and then deciding to do something about it, and really getting support from a lot of amazing individuals, and I know we'll talk more about it as well shortly, who've supported us to, support many other people from migrant background, refugee background, to start their own businesses in Australia.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Look, honestly, I had a small business before. I know how hard it is. And I know how hard it is for us as migrants or refugees. Imagine, try to put something together, put the money, finance the business, looking or finding mentors. How do you do with that? How did you find your mentors?
So I guess this one of those things where, in a way, I was lucky that I was kind of building the business that I wanted to build, but that was also supporting other people too. So if you go ahead and try and find mentors for yourself, it's a bit hard. But if you go and try and find mentors for other people, sometimes it's a bit easier. But also,
Yeah.
I guess some of the mentors that I had and the learning that I had, they were kind of directly applied into the programs we were running. So that was really fantastic. Initially, I found mentors through participating in other programs. So as I mentioned, School for Social Entrepreneurship, that was one of the programs I was a part of. I participated in the program called Young Social Pioneers, which is run by another organization called the Foundation for Young Australians. So this is back when I was a young person and couldn't kind of, meet the criteria at the time. So I did some of those youth social entrepreneurship programs. I guess got involved with having a lot of coffees with different people, and once you meet a mentor or someone with a certain expertise, then they will refer you to someone else and someone else. So having like 50 and 100 and lots of coffees over time to meet people who are quite passionate and want to support. And then also, particularly in the early days, doing a lot of cold calling. So for example, someone comes to us and say, we've got a business in this industry. This is what we're doing. We're looking for help or support in this area. So if we didn't have a mentor who could help them, for example, with accounting or legal, we'll pick up the phone, call someone, find the right resources, and then connect people up. What we will find is many people in Australia are really keen and happy to help. They just don't know how. And so be able to kind of give them that platform and go, there are these really driven migrant refugees who want to start their business, who want to learn. Can you help them? That was quite a strong value proposition for many of these mentors who wanted to give back. So we've seen thousands of people that have come in and mentored over the years. And now, over time, we've built a community and many people that are coming and kind of supporting people. What I guess I'm really proud of now is that we're getting a lot of alumni to come back as well and mentor the next generation of entrepreneurs. And so some of the people that have already gone through our programs and have had their own success and their own learnings are coming back and supporting and sharing that with the future, I guess, generations of Migrapreneurs as well. And that's where my hope and my aim is, to hopefully have this community to be so fantastic and so successful that, we don't need any outside mentors. We've got people that are coming in and supporting each other as well.
Yeah, beautiful, man. Your vision is amazing. In your experience, what are the main challenges that migrants and refugee entrepreneurs face in Australia?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I guess this really varies depending on your background, your culture, your things. For some people, it is language, because language is one of those things where, like we all have kind of different, I guess, understanding of language. We come from different cultures, different backgrounds. For me, I was kind of, I guess, coming from Pakistan, in a country which already had, colonization like Australia. So we had English as the official
Yeah.
language. So it was less hard for me. But for some of the other people that are coming from some other countries, it might be more difficult. So I guess language is one of the barriers. But
Yeah.
language speaking and kind of understanding is one thing, but also the business language is another thing. There's a lot of acronyms, there are a
Yeah.
lot of things you need to know. So I
Yeah.
guess that's one of the barriers. Another big barriers is another one of the big barriers is networks. So not having access to people. So when you want to start a business, you want to be able to obviously find customers, your
Yeah.
mentors, your
Yeah.
investors, your community, your team members, etc. Right? And you need to know people to do that. So if you're a new migrant, or I guess any migrant coming here, you don't have the sort of same community as you would if you're growing up. You go to school here, you have all the family and friends here. So big difference, and so
Yeah.
that's another thing that people
Yeah.
often lack. One of the other things
Yeah.
is, I guess, access to, kind of funding, which is another kind of main thing. So for many people who are kind of born here, oftentimes they want to start their own business. They might have their friends and family who can help them or support them, or they can get a business loan because they have a credit history or whatever. Versus if you're a new migrant, it's really hard to kind of access capital, whether that's because you don't have a network, which kind of comes back to the previous point, or because you don't have a credit history and things like that. You don't might not have collateral or a house or anything like that as well. So those kind of things that are hard. And then personally, I think another one that's huge is confidence. And confidence is one of those things where it's a really tricky one, where it's not
Yeah.
just necessarily the confidence to do things, but confidence to start a business in a new country and run a business in a new country. So you might be a really confident person generally. You might be a really confident person in your own country. You might be a really confident person running a business in your own country. But when you come to a new environment, everything is hard or new, and it's complex. There's a lot of regulation in Australia. There's just too many steps, and people, sometimes see that and then get really worried and oftentimes lose their confidence. And so, I guess those are kind of key barriers that I've seen people face, or the challenges that I face from migrant backgrounds.
Man, you're talking to me because I had those issues. The confident issue, I can recognize that in me. It's like, oh, can I do this actually? Because it's hard everywhere. It's hard, but doing it in a different language in another country with a different system, when you don't have network, it's a different issue. It's like huge. So yeah, I mean, having the courage to do it. I did it with a small business before, and it was hard because it was not my passion, right? I'm a social person. Actually, I wanted to convert because it was a little catering business, but I was looking for a way to transform it in a social business. And at some stage I was working so hard that I hurt my back, and was like, you know what, I need to decide if I what's my priorities, basically, because I have a family, right? I have two kids, and it's my business or my family. And I decided to sell the business, but the vision was beautiful, but I find it really hard. I make a few mistakes. I didn't have a mentor, and that's one of the reasons because I joined Catalysr, because I'm looking for like-minded people. I wanna solve, or try to solve, or help to solve a social issue, but where to start, right? I mean, there's a lot of NGOs in Australia. There's a lot of people helping, a lot of people, doing good things. And it's like, where do I start? So, that was one of the reasons, and I can relate with that, with those issues that you mentioned before. Um, Usman, can you let us know a little bit more about the programs that you run in Catalysr, and how do you come with a, or I don't know if Migrapreneurs is a proper term, or something that you come out with. It's a concept that you created.
Yeah, so I mean, I can probably start with the term migrapreneur and obviously talk more about the programs we offer.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a term that we coined back, I believe in 2017 or 2018. Can't remember the exact kind of year, but something like that. And thinking was, look, when we started running Catalyzer, initially, as I kind of told you, the problem we were trying to solve is supporting people who were unemployed or particularly underemployed. So if you're a maths person, you would kind of get this. But if you imagine like a Venn diagram, or all the people that are kind of sitting in this circle who are from migrant background, from refugee background, right? Who are coming to Australia
Yeah.
and who are kind of, I guess, unemployed or underemployed. Then there would be another, I guess, circle of people who would want to start a business and be successful in business as well. And so obviously there's a bit of an overlap in between those two circles, right? Of people who will be migrant refugee background and want to, I guess, are unemployed or underemployed, and then people who are, wanting to start a business. So what we were finding in the early days of Catalysr was we obviously helping people to start their own business, and some people are starting their business. Other people were utilizing the networks and doing the program to then get into a better job, which is really fantastic, and that's something obviously we want to support and them do. But our main focus was to help them really realize their potential and really think outside the box, start their own enterprise and so on. And so what we realized was that part of that had to do with the story that we're telling and the language we're using. And initially we were saying, we are supporting, I guess, underrepresented entrepreneurs from migrant backgrounds or people who are facing challenges. And we realized that, that was kind of the deficit mindset. That was a kind of coming in from a negative kind of perspective, but actually we wanted to think more positively, more inspirational. And that's where we said, look, when we look at the data, when we look at the kind of stories of amazing success stories already in Australia, we know there's so many people from migrant backgrounds who've started amazing businesses, who've had amazing success, right? But when you think of a migrant or you think of a refugee, you don't think of successful business owners. You think of someone who's struggling. You think of someone who's had financial problems or language problems or any of the other things. And so we said, well, if so many entrepreneurs come from migrant backgrounds, refugee backgrounds, and we did some research on this and got the data as well, then why don't we create a term that connects those two together? And also something that people don't have a preconceived idea of, whether they're Australian locals or migrants. They hear about it and they go, hang on, what does that actually mean? Because it's a new thing. So we came up with this idea of a migrapreneur as a term, because that's something that basically connected migrant and entrepreneur together. And then people can look at it and then go, okay, what does that mean? And for us, it was someone who was, actually trying to start a business to support themselves, their family, their community, create jobs for people, create innovation, create social impact. So because we coined the term, we were able to define it how we want it to be. But the other wonderful thing that happened, which we didn't know if it would happen, is obviously we were helping people, who are part of our programs to kind of take this term. But we also saw some successful entrepreneurs from migrant backgrounds that are in Australia kind of use that term as well. We have also seen people in other countries use that term. There's a company with the name of Migrapreneur in Germany, I believe now, and so there's already people using it internationally, which is absolutely fantastic. So, that's something that for us and for me personally, I think is really, really fantastic, because we can change the narrative and make it really positive and really focus on that, because the data is already there, but people don't think about it from that perspective. So when you look at the data, for example, we found that there's 33% of Australian small businesses come from first generation, migrant backgrounds. This is like 1/3. It's quite large. And that was, there was a IAG, the Insurance Australia group, that did that independent research back in 2017. We've also looked at different surveys that are done by the startup and tech sector from Startup Muster, and they found 35 to 40% of the migrant and refugee, or 35 to 40% of the startups are founded by migrant and refugee founders. So these are really large numbers, right? And that's why we thought it would be good to have that term. And coming to the next point that you had around the programs we run and which kind of programs we run. So we've also experimented with this over time, and come up with different programs that we think can add the most value to specific audiences, and based on the feedback we've had from our, alumni. And currently the programs we've got two sets of programs. So we've got our fellowship programs and our accelerator programs. The fellowship programs we have are really, you can think about them as an education program for people who are just starting on their journey, who want to learn how to start their own business, and then actually, either build a business or, find their team, find their co-founders, or get a job in a business as well. And we've got two different streams in there. So we've got a startup tech fellowship where people want to build a tech company, or social impact fellowship, which I know you're a part of. We're trying to build a social impact idea. So those are kind of two different programs we're running, which, as you know, has online learning plus mentoring and, kind of support as well. And then we've got our accelerator program, which happens later in the year. And that's where, it's more focused on execution, so less on education, where we start with startup bootcamp. We take a few startups and help them, go from like that stage that they're coming. They already have a bit of a product or an MVP. They've got some team. Now they're looking to grow. So then they can get access to more mentoring. They can access to capital. They can get access to, further support and really focus more on execution. So I guess that's the kind of main difference. It's also the difference in stages, but also the difference in the kind of focus of the program, where the first kind of fellowship programs are more about learning about, what it actually is, and then the accelerator program is actually the doing as well. So it's just like depending on which stage people are at and what they're trying to do, those are kind of two programs you offer. And then obviously there's like stuff for alumni. So if people finish either of the programs and become alumni of Catalysr, then we're also supporting them on an ad hoc basis. So they might need some more mentoring, or they might need connection with media, or they might need connection with capital, or whatever it is. Then we can also do some kind of coaching and support on that as well. So those are kind of three things, I guess, key things that we're offering. And something else that we've been doing recently is partnering with other organizations to try and come up with specialist programs that we will do over the coming years. So some of the things that we're thinking of is thinking of doing like an AI fellowship or an e-commerce fellowship or like a climate fellowship. So we can do more specific ones as well over in the future. And that will be, again, to support migrants and refugees who are really interested in a particular topic. So that's kind of how we're operating at the moment.
Yeah, amazing, man. How did you validate? I mean, you talk a little bit about this one before, but how did you find what the needs of migrant and entrepreneur, migrant entrepreneurs were? How did you find? How did you find? How did you figure it out that the group was big enough to launch a business, basically?
So I guess generally when we looked at the data back in 2016 when we launched Catalysr in the first place, at the time we saw that there was, 1/4 of the Australian population was born overseas, so 28% of the population, which is about 67 million people, so it's a large population in itself. But then also at the time we saw that every year, 180 to 200,000 people were coming to Australia on different visas. So, partner visa, student visa, PR, refugee, all the kind of different things, right? And within that, one of the interesting data point was that 65% of them were either unemployed or underemployed. This is back in 2016 when we started.
Really?
So we had old data, and we thought about in the first 5 years of being in Australia, when you add those numbers up, that's 500,000 people. And so for us, that was like a really large cohort, and obviously not all of them would want to start a business, but because we're not running business programs for thousands of people, we're running it for 10, 20, 30 people. So we saw there was a big enough, opportunity there from a general kind of data perspective at a top level. Secondly, we spoke to organizations who were at the forefront. So initially we partnered with Community Migrant Resource Center in Parramatta, which actually had people, and they were doing a lot of settlement stuff, so teaching people language, helping them with community support, new migrants and refugees that are coming to Australia in kind of different ways. And they had people already coming to us asking if they can get help with building their own business. So they had some business advisors who were specifically giving them advice in particular languages, but there was no program that existed. So we partnered with them in the very early days of our program. And we've done that since then. So we partner with different kind of community organizations. We partner with universities because they have international students that are looking for this. We've partnered with different incubators and so on. So in terms of kind of validating the need, it was kind of reaching out to organizations that were at that forefront, that were working with migrants or working with international students or different people in different visas, and understanding what kind of businesses they want to start and why. That was kind of in the early days. As we've run a few of our programs and we got, people going through our programs, then we got the data directly from them. So our alumni and people that go through, what did they find valuable, what not, what did they not find valuable, so doing some surveys and also doing interviews with them and kind of getting their qualitative data as well. And so that has helped shape, changing individual components of what works and doesn't work in a particular program, but then also overarching strategy on what are some of the programs we should be working on and which direction we should go in. So this idea of doing, for example, last year we had a general kind of fellowship, which included both tech and social enterprise. But one of the feedback we got was people wanted to get more specific focus and dig deeper into a particular topic. So they said it would be great if you had a separate tech program and a separate social impact program. And then another feedback that we got was that people wanted more of different topics, right? So they mentioned climate or AI or different things. And so the topics that we're focusing on are dependent on what is the feedback we're getting from our alumni and different people in the community, or what are the programs they want to be a part of, what are the skills they want to learn, what are the industries they want to be a part of as well. And so that's how we're developing over time.
Yeah, amazing, man. Do you have any like a particular story, success story of migrant entrepreneurs of Catalyzer?
That's a great question. I mean, as like it's like choosing your favorite children. There's like 1,000 people. It's really hard to kind of say this one's the
Fair
best or
enough.
that one's the best.
No, no,
I
but
think
something that
what I can tell you, I guess what I can tell you
sorry,
though
go
is that
ahead.
it depends on what success looks like to you, because there's kind of financial success and
Yeah,
social impact success. Um,
yeah.
just like we were talking about this, and you met like one of the alumni recently, Sakshi, who was used to run a company called Humanism, which then converted into Sowing the Seeds.
Oh, yeah.
So they've been supporting women in India, learn about textiles industry and get financial independence, and then sell their products and services in Australia. So that's like one example of a social impact business that's doing quite well for the last few years. We've had a company that was actually it's a company called Natnada that is helping on reducing emissions by working with different companies and helping them reduce their carbon emissions. And so they've raised funding from Scalata Ventures. They've recently won an award as well, or I think were nominated for one of the awards at Startup Daily. So that's another company that that's out there. We've had people who, there's another one, Eldon, who I was speaking to recently. He was named under the Forbes 30 under 30. He's got a biotech startup which is come up with a particular diagnosis called Diagnosio. So it's come up with a particular diagnosis for chronic sinusitis, which is one of the kind of ENT disease. So some people are calling like specific deep technology like medtech. We've had people who worked in space technology. There's a company called Spiral Blue, but also in kind of software as a service. So there's a company called HR Partner who've expanded to about 75 different countries. We've got a company called Image Psychology that is doing psychology and kind of mental health support for people from South Asian backgrounds across, Melbourne and Australia, and doing quite well. You've got a company called Totex, which is building like a heating cooling solution, so in that clean tech space. So yeah, so I can keep naming. There's lots and lots of amazing alumni
Man,
from many different cohorts, and many of them will be not happy with me that I didn't name them. But it's a long list. It's a long list of people.
Jay, that's amazing. In how many years? In
8 years.
like 6 years, 8 years. Oh my God, that's
8
amazing.
years.
That's
Yeah.
an incredible
Yeah. Yeah.
achievement, man. Yeah, cool. Um, Usman, how does Catalyze support entrepreneurs in accessing fundings or investment opportunities?
Yeah, that's a great question. Funding, as I mentioned, is one of the gaps that people face when they are, trying to start a business, but specifically if they are a migrant entrepreneur. So I guess it depends on what kind of business they're working on. So if their business is more kind of tech focused or impact focused, if it's tech focused, then most of the kind of funding they're looking for is through venture capital or angel investment and things like that. Obviously, there's some grants that are out there, but not as many. So we can kind of tell them more about the grants, but then also connect them with different angels and venture capital kind of groups, like quite a few different angel groups in Australia and also VCs, particularly those that are coming to accelerator program later in the stage, helping them kind of make those introductions of networks, helping them train a bit about how to do their pitch, and get really, I guess, connected to that ecosystem is something that helps them. As you may know, with kind of VCs, it's a lot about relationship building and who you know. So it's obviously, kind of like going in with a good idea, but it's also like getting to know people and building that relationship, because oftentimes they won't just invest if they see you for the first time and now you're raising capital. And for many founders, it's like getting to know people, getting that introduction that can really help. And so because we've been operating for a while, we know most of the, I guess, funds in Australia. So making those introductions, helping people access that is something we've done. So that's, I guess, on the kind of tech side. On the social impact side, there's more grants available. There are also more foundations. Plus, I guess there are opportunities to kind of get access to certain kind of impact investment and impact investors. So that's another group of people that we've connected people with, again, depending on what they're working on. So for example, I guess in social impact, say you're doing work in mental health or working on people with disabilities or family or domestic violence. They're kind of different groups of funding or opportunities to connect with. So it's for anyone who's a migrant, they might not know how the system operates. So connecting them with the right people in that industry, or connecting them with the right funders in that industry where we can, is something we do. Oftentimes we do connect them with our own alumni who've been operating in that industry as well, so they can give them unique insights on who to speak to for funding, how to go about doing certain things, and that also helps as well. So when we started in the early days, we kind of building those networks, but now oftentimes, even if you don't have a network with some particular industry or particular funder, our alumni do. So that's a huge resource pool, or sometimes the mentors do. So a huge resource pool that we reach out to and connect people with our mentors and our alumni, because then they oftentimes their own network. So it's like that network effect that's just really, really valuable.
Yeah, amazing, man. Yeah, amazing. In terms of the when a migrapreneur try to access funding or try to connect with people, in your opinion, what are the biggest misconceptions about migrants and refugees entrepreneurs that you have encountered?
You mean from a funder's side or from a migrant
from
side?
from a founder from a founder side. So what's look? I suppose prior to that question, I should ask you, at what stage a company or or an idea has to be to address a founder. That's a so at what stage should I be able to ask a founder to have a look at my idea?
And this is a great question, because I think this is where like any micropreneur might kind of think we need to have like a really good idea and have developed it, built it, prototype, MVP, got a team together, got all the business plan, and now we should go to a founder or an investor to give us the money. But actually, it's I would I guess it's not just me, but a lot of other people would also kind of recommend this. It's go to the investors or the funders very early. So if you have an idea, go speak to the investors. But you're not going there and asking them for money. So I think obviously you need to have that self-awareness that you're not there yet, and like you're not
Yeah.
asking them for money, but what you're doing is you're getting to know them, you're building that relationship, so they get to know who you are, and then you tell them what your idea is, and oftentimes you ask for advice. It's a very famous kind of quote that if you ask for advice, you get funding. If you ask for funding, you get advice. So if you go in when you're ready and you want to raise money, sometimes it's a bit too late, because many investors don't want to invest in you just now, but actually want to see your journey and see how you deal with problems, how resilient you are, how you've kind of built a certain I guess particular product, how you've built a team, all those kind of things. So many, I guess, micropreneurs have this misconception that we should go to a funder when we're ready. Go to a funder, talk to them when you're at that idea stage. Unless there's some funder that's kind of later stage funder and only funds when you are at a certain stage, it's different. But for most of the early stage funders, you should get to them in an early stage. You're pitching them the idea, but you're also being really obvious and conscious and saying, look, I'm not asking for funding. I'm just trying to build a relationship, getting to know you. And many funders are quite happy to do that. They're happy to be added to like an email list where you can just send them updates, let them know what's going on. And then when you're actually trying to raise, they already have context of your company. They already have context about you and your team. And then you're more likely to raise funding from them. So I guess that's one thing that's quite important that many people miss out on, is doing that work early and only thinking about it when you actually need the money. And then sometimes that's quite too late, because people oftentimes don't invest in strangers, even if it's a really fantastic idea. So it's good to build that relationship early, because that can really help you along the way. The only exception to this is grants, where in many of the grants, they oftentimes, like particularly if you're a social entrepreneur, the grants will have a specific published criteria, and you can kind of go and apply for those grants and things like that. But even in that case, if you know those organizations, if you know people at this organization, or if you've spent the time to build some relationships, they at least know who you are. You already have a bit of credibility in the market. So when you've got that actual idea up and running, then you're more likely to raise funding and capital. So I would say the earliest time to go to a fund, like there's no early time. If you've got an idea, you should go and speak to funders, but not go with an idea of, okay, I want to get your money, but ask for advice, and see what advice they're giving and what are the kind of things they might fund, right? Because you might realize that what you're building might not be funded by some of those funders, and what their, I guess, reason might be, and then that might help you set up your business model or work in a way that it is more fundable, it is more investable as well.
Yeah, cool. Is that the way you found your Catalysr?
That's right. Yeah. So when we started, I mean, I was already part of another program, so I was quite lucky that I got to meet different mentors. We applied for an initial small grant about 5K that we got as a part of that program, and we kind of started very early.
Yeah.
So we didn't have any money to get started, but we met with a lot of people. We built those relationships, and for us, because we had a bit of I guess, non-traditional organization, because we set up as a not-for-profit and we're actually getting more grants. So we got time to make, for example, we started in Parramatta in Western Sydney, so with the local city government and the people that are running different programs there, and then we applied for grants when we already had our pilot and got some relevance on the board, and then they looked at that already, they already knew us, that we had a relationship, so we got approved for those grants, and that helped us get to the next stage and then so on. So definitely building
Yeah,
those
cool.
relationships were a real key to getting that early stage funding.
Yeah. Usman, when you say us, it was you and the co-founder, or you had a team? How did you conform? How did you build a team behind Catalysr?
Great question. Great question. How do I build a team, or how should people build a team?
No, how did you build your team?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, as I mentioned, I was part of a program for social entrepreneurship. So that's where I met a co-founder, and so we
Yeah.
were both kind of passionate about this area. He was an accountant who, as I said, didn't really want to do a lot of accounting work because that was something that was like kind of corporate. They didn't want to go into that corporate work too much. He did his accounting degree, went to Bangladesh, did some learning in microfinance, and wanted to do some more social impact work as well, and was kind of returned back from Bangladesh as well. So we partnered up in the beginning as kind of co-founders to work together. So that was like our initial team. We had some volunteers initially that we had because we had no money and we were just starting out, who were helping us in the early days. And those people that we met, again, through that program that we were a part of, were helping us in getting started and kind of building some of our programs. Then after that, as we got some funding, then we kind of hired officially for different roles. So initially, we were kind of obviously getting people for different part-time roles. We would I guess advertise a particular role, interview people, kind of the usual process that you will follow in an organization to then hire someone. Initially have people in for like a bit of a probation, and then see how they perform and then go from there. So we've had mostly really good hires. Apart from maybe one or two people, most of the hires that we've had have been really good and quite successful over the years. But always, I guess, there's a couple of things that we focused on. One was building culture from the start. So me and my co-founder, we thought about, what is the culture that we want to set for the organization? And you can still find this online. We've got a culture code people can view, which is like, what do we believe our values are, the organizational values are they want to start with, what is the culture they want to set in an organization, how things get done, what we value, how we operate. And as new people came in, that's something that we kind of always shared with them. So then they took that away as well. And then over time, I guess that's one of the things that's become very normal and kind of something we use all the time. So as new people come in and go, that's something we do. And one of the, I guess, part of that thing is that we're quite entrepreneurial and kind of thinking out of the box. And so many of the people that we worked with have also been entrepreneurs and founders in their own right. Many of them have been migrapreneurs as well, running their own businesses, which has been really fantastic. So they might be doing part-time work with us, but they're starting their own business or growing their own business. And so oftentimes, even if they came in without a business idea, they've also been inspired by other people that are going through the program and have started their own businesses. So for us, that's been really, really fantastic to see, not just the people that come to Catalysr and working with us as a team member, but also to see them grow and then get into better roles or starting their own businesses as well. And that's been for me like the biggest highlight, that seeing people use this opportunity as a stepping stone to go to the next stage in their own career.
Yeah, amazing, man. That's great. What's the future for Catalysr? What your plans are for Catalysr?
So for us, there's a lot of things we want to do in the future. I guess at a high level, in Australia, there's stuff we want to do locally, in the next couple of years, but also thinking about international play as well. So when we started Catalysr, we were one of the very few organizations that were running this kind of incubator accelerator type program globally to support migrants and refugees. Over time, more organizations have started. Some organizations that I've personally kind of helped get up and running in different countries by just giving them content and resources that they wanted to kind of do this. So now there's a global movement of refugee and migrant entrepreneurship, and organizations doing it in different countries, in Europe, in South America, in Africa, in Middle East, and so on. And so something that we're doing is we want to collaborate with them more, and so we want to run our programs here locally, but also look at how can we support them. So like train the trainer type models, helping share more of our content and our resources, helping grow our impact essentially. So that's one area that we're focusing on. The second thing we want to do is we want to support more of our alumni. As I already mentioned, we've got over 1,000 alumni now, and so that's something that there's so much potential in there, and I think we haven't really done too much for alumni, other than kind of supporting, doing coaching here and there. So we want to support more of our alumni going into the future. Obviously, continue our existing programs. Plus, we want to look at doing setting up a fund. So we want to also start to give grants to and invest in Migrapreneurs ourselves. And so that's something we're exploring at the moment, is also looking at how do we set up a fund and how do we get more people to give money to us, then we can give money to other people from our cohorts and I guess our alumni as well. So those are kind of three things that we're looking at going into the future at the moment.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, great. This is a plan for 5-10 years. What's your
That's right.
time frame? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so some of this is
And
kind of going to the next couple of years.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was saying some of this is for the next couple of years. Other things are more longer term. And really, I guess what we know is that migration is continuing. Obviously, like politics changes and things change, but we know migration is continuing not just in Australia but globally. And some of this is obviously because people want to find a better place to live and work. Sometimes it's unfortunate because of the refugee crisis. So we know with Ukraine, Palestine, Afghanistan, we've seen this kind of increases. We'll see more migration with unfortunately with climate change, and so all these things will happen. So we need to be prepared, not just as an organization but globally, to deal with migration. Part of this is kind of employment and entrepreneurship, which is what we're working on. The other part is the narrative, and how do we kind of reduce this kind of negative narrative about, like the story of migrants will come and take our jobs, or migrants are not going to settle in and integrate in our country. That's not true. We see so many migrants, in Australia specifically, and I know other parts of the world, that are learning the language, that are, really good taxpayers, decent citizens, building their companies, hiring other people, supporting the economies. So we want to really focus on that, creating the positive stories, and really sharing that data as well, because we believe that's something that will help try to change people's perspective, especially as we have more people migrating. We want to make sure that, that when they're coming to countries, there's better support for them, whether that's Australia, whether it's Europe, whether other countries, and then also they're not seen as this liability, or they're not seen as like a problem, but they're seen as a contributor to the economy. They can add value, they can create jobs, they can create entrepreneurship and innovation. So that's my vision, hopefully, to kind of see that happening on a global scale. And that is not going to take 3 years, that's going to take 20, 50 years. But hopefully, the more that we talk about it, the more organizations that do this work, the more we'll have stories and I guess, case studies to share with the rest of the world.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, great. Yeah, well, we're on the same page. That's what I want to do as well, in terms of the communicate the stories of these people. Because at the end of the day, we came here. It's a tough journey. Adaptation. It's tough, and the only thing that you wanna do is to feel that you belong to Australia and contribute and add value to this country, and a lot of us think the same, feel the same, and this group is a great example of that. So look, Usman, thank you so much for your time. I know you're super busy. I just want to make you one more question before we finish the interview. But what advice would you give to another or other organizations looking to support migrants and refugees entrepreneurs?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I would say if you are an organization that wants to support other migrants and refugees and kind of help them get started, I think it's understanding that migrants and refugees, yes, they do face challenges that I mentioned, like network and language and things like that. But ultimately, migrants and refugees coming from different cultures, different countries, different backgrounds have a lot of superpowers. They come in with different skills. They come in with different knowledge. That is something that you can really build on, right? So a big thing that you can do is help build their confidence and help their mindset. I think that's one of the things. Secondly, help them do better off and more of what they're really good at. So really get them to utilize their potential, use their use their skills and their values and so on to really build their businesses. So something that we've never done is actually ask people to, I guess, kind of, tell them, hey, you should be building this kind of business or that, right? We have no right to do that, right? Like everyone comes in with their own aspiration, their own future vision of what they want and so on. So it's like your goal is really to help them, right? In a way, sometimes you're acting as a parent, sometimes you're acting as a teacher in a university, sometimes you're acting as an investor. So you will have all those different hats on, but the goal is to look at amazing people that are coming here who have so much skill, so much potential, I would say so many superpowers, and see how you can unleash those superpowers, how you can get them to use those superpowers to build a better future for themselves and for the country. So if you can do that, doesn't matter what kind of programs we run, doesn't matter what kind of support you provide, it's ultimately the outcomes. If you can help them get to those outcomes, that's fantastic. And good luck.
Excellent, man. Excellent. Thank you so much, man. Congratulations. Really, I'm really enjoying the program. Honestly, the content is amazing. So, anyone, if someone is interested in to have a look at Catalysr, catalysr.com.au, is it CATA? I'm just gonna put it over there on the credits as well. So if you guys, if someone is interested into learn a little bit more about migrant entrepreneurship, catalysr.com.au is an excellent platform where you can find a lot of information, a lot of valuable content and connections that I am doing it at the moment, and I'm really enjoying it. So thank you so much for your time, Usman. I hope to see you soon again, probably tomorrow tomorrow night, and we will get in touch again.
Thank you so much as well for your time, and thank you for doing this, not just for me, but so many other migrants, and telling their stories and the work they're doing. I think it's really fantastic. Thank you.